So, welcome back, everyone. I want to begin by reassuring you all that this is really happening. You're not imagining it, we're all here. Um, uh, we may not actually resolve the overarching question that this gathering has posed, but I think Demet Hanım, very beautifully says it in her curatorial statement that this, and that I hope that this experience will be part of creating that quiet wonder of something true. So that's my intention for this panel today. I think that in some of the earlier discussions over the last 2 days, we've talked about how, our basic faith in an objective truth and a shared reality has been splintering for a long time, and that we may have artists to thank or blame for helping to get us here. But I would say that one possible trend that we can talk about is how that's sort of come full circle. That it's oftentimes today artists who are doing the truth-seeking, who are using their art to expose hidden realities and uncomfortable truths that we may not want to face, and that they are taking on the role of journalists or researchers and detectives, whether the issues that they tackle are political, ecological, or personal. So with that in mind, I want to make a point that that this isn't to say that artists don't continue to bend reality as they pursue it. And the 5 artists who are here today each have a very distinct, discrete way of approaching what they see as real. So without further ado, I think we can go right in, and it's Jonah who's going first. So you lost the coin toss. So
all right.
But the reason I want to start with you is because the worlds that you create with your artistic partner, Justin Lowe, are very fantastical and futuristic, but oddly seem entirely possible. And if you wouldn't mind spending a bit of time talking about how these fictional environments that you create still show us what is real or what can be real, and how you're able to do that, how you're able to get at the nub of that through these very much created environments. That would be really, really a nice place to start.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what Justin and I have been doing for almost 20 years now is what we think of as rooms as sculptures, these environments we create. And so we're very much focused on the materiality of these environments. And so we spend a lot of time kind of creating the residue of use and the residue of time and really creating details. So, and when you're as a viewer, as a spectator or a viewer moving through these spaces, you're really confronted with the materiality of this environment, and you're sort of feeling the architecture, feeling the room, feeling the history. And although it's very much like, it has a bit of like a cinema aspect to it, a bit of a set building aspect to it, but we're very much think of it as sculpture. And I feel like when you're in the presence of a sculpture, you're really being confronted with material, just in the same way like when you're around, say, a Richard Serra or something like that, you're confronted with the weight of the metal. And that's sort of the ultimate experience of the work, is just that this being in space.
Yeah. And again, with this idea of you're fully entering. It's immersive is, I think, another way to think about it. The detail that goes into actually like creating this and imagining this. What are the sort of real world roots that or the foundation or the planks that you rely on to get there, to create something that is still recognizable somehow?
Yeah, there's a deep historical and narrative armature to all the pieces that are usually, they're often concocted in script format, where I write a story that kind of outlines what this show or exhibition is going to be about, and a lot of it is rooted in histories of Cold War counterculture and psychedelic drugs and things like that. For instance, the piece that's here is based partly on Operation Mockingbird, which was a CIA covert operation to infiltrate the media starting in the 40s and then going through the 70s. And the guy who invented it his name was Frank Wisner. He called it like a giant pipe organ that he could play and make the world sing the way he wanted it to. And so I thought that was appropriate for this world that we're trying to confront of what is really real and this sort of mediated chaos that we're in right now. But I think when you go into the space and you sort of feel like the material and the imagery and all that, you don't necessarily see that history. So that's more for me as a guiding principle, as like the sort of script to create the environment. Without that, it's kind of like I would be rudderless in moving through this world. And so sometimes it can be as simple as like, we're going to create a hippie commune or an Upper East Side apartment or a meth lab, and then you have those parameters, and then you can spin out and get wild within that.
That's great. Yeah, that's that tethering. You need to be tethered somehow to this real
absolutely.
world. Great, Sheree. If we can move on to you. Analog photography is at the heart of so much of your work, but your use of other materials is, can be sometimes quite surprising, your choices, but they also lend a certain uncertainty to this form of documentation that we've often think of for photography. Could you share what part of reality you are exploring by creating, these maybe these interim spaces with that, and your work that's on view in the neighborhood exhibition is actually it's the video opposite the main space. Would you talk about that as well? How the way that you approach photography and the elements that you sort of add to it, how that's reflected also in the video work that we can see.
Sure. So I guess I'll begin talking about analog photography, and I use it for a few reasons. I make collages mostly with photographs that are printed on silver gelatin paper, which is an analog process. And I do that because I like the materiality of the paper. I like the richness of the black. And I'm using the photographs in a way that requires material handling, touching. Yeah. So, I nail them into a board. And I also use, within my collages, things like ceramics or string, like thread. And I was really interested in the way that sort of ceramics talks about photography, where they share some commonalities. One, that they go through a chemical process. Two, that they take an impression. They can take like you can touch it and you can leave a mark there. And then also that there's a threat of failure within its like, and I think it's that.
There's a risk element, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a risk element. And I find that risk element, or that sort of giving way to the unknown, or meeting the unknown sort of halfway, is something that's like pretty constant in my work. So, yeah, I think that's somehow touches on the idea of the real. Yeah.
Exactly. And then with your video installation, can you maybe talk a little bit about how you came about to make that and why you felt it would work as well as it does? I mean, had you visited this neighborhood before? Did you understand exactly how it would be
Actually,
installed?
the video it's a reimagining of a video that I made, it's placed in a different way than it was originally made. It was made to exist on the internet within a magazine called an online arts magazine called Triple Canopy, and so putting it in this place was actually another idea of like sort of playing with the idea of real, like what happens when you change the environment or the way that it's shown. And it was originally the ideas that I had when I was making it were to create sort of this place of respite or meditation within a chaotic, scape of the, the internet world. And I really enjoy how it translates into, the city street in this way, in Istanbul. I thought that was a really interesting sort of translation.
Absolutely. But again, you took a risk, didn't you?
Yeah.
How is it going to appear in the street that
Yeah,
you've
I
never
didn't-
been on?
Yeah, and I didn't know, exactly
Wonderful.
how it was going to exist.
Okay, thank you. So, Ben, your installation in the neighborhood exhibit really gives a lot of texture to the entire show. We feel the sound as much as we can hear it. And in fact, someone pointed out to me, a woman, I was stood next to a woman who saw, we were looking at José's work and the amphora that stood on the floor right above where you were playing. And she pointed out that the sound was coming through José's amphora and sort of distorting it a little bit. So
They were broken before.
It was you.
I don't know. But it really, obviously, like it really, it kind of insinuated itself into the other work too in a really powerful way. For those of us who maybe aren't musicians or in the sound sphere as much, we think of sound as something invisible, something that you can't touch, obviously, and see, and therefore maybe question how maybe real it is if you can't actually see it. But for you, how would you counter that? How would you say that's a silly point?
Look, I think that sound is kind of omnipresent in our world, and more. I mean, when was the last time you went to a restaurant without a fucking soundtrack? Food needs a score.
Yeah.
Who knew? But it really is a thing now where we're being bombarded with it at such a rate that I think it starts to lose meaning, in a really profound way.
And we almost don't even hear it.
No,
maybe.
and I mean, we're at this point now where you've got a playlist playing in any restaurant, any venue, any space really, and it's just there to kind of mask, to heighten a mood, to make conversation more difficult, to excite a space, to make us feel like we're all part of something. And meanwhile, the system that kind of is responsible for that feeling and for that idea is designed with this inherent invisibility. It's really the design aspects of sound technology, of broadcast technology. It really takes the same approach as military stealth technology. To that point, I'm speaking right now, but you're hearing me over there and over here through black boxes, which you're not supposed to look at in spite of the fact they're sitting right in front of you. They're everywhere, and we never think about them. And I think that's a kind of a paradigm that's been very clear to me over a 20-year career of performing, and this kind of hidden economy of this sort of modular system of communication that exists in every city in the world. I can walk into any city on the planet and say, I want this PA, I want these speakers in these dimensions, and some guy with a truck will turn up and dump it on a doorstep from a warehouse where it's spending most of its life, and I'll pay for that, and that will sort of exist for a moment, and then it will disappear again. Meanwhile, the kind of the physicality of those objects carry with them a kind of a really interesting set of modular sort of sculptural possibilities, which I've sort of noticed over years of spending time in venues and watching things vibrate off tables and kind of playing with frequency and shapes and really being fascinated by the objects themselves, what they're made of. you know? It's paper, it's copper, it's cadmium. You know, these
Yeah.
are all materials with incredibly costly extractive processes at their heart that we never really have to think about. And, you know, and even further than that, just in the art world in general, you know, most art that deals in sound is never asking you to question the locality of that sound or what it is that's giving you that feeling of sound. The speakers are, the classic gallery speaker is it comes in white instead of black, and it's in the corner. It's behind a curtain. It's hidden behind some beautifully curated wall with a didactic text on it with little holes poked in it, so you don't have to look at it.
We're supposed to ignore it.
You're supposed to ignore it. And so I guess my kind of fascination is with then sort of flipping that narrative and saying, okay, this is what is making that sound, and this is where it comes from, and this is what it's doing. And I would even sort of take that further into the sort of paraphernalia that comes along with those systems, the amplifiers, the wires, you know.
Yeah, that people were almost tripping over. They weren't really, but and then on a sort of bed of felt, if I'm not mistaken, is how you put.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just it's mostly just about kind of framing in that instance and contrast, you know, because that floor is very dark. So I just wanted to kind of bring even more kind of attention to that idea. But yeah, and that doesn't even get sort of started on the effect it is inevitably having on the building, which is.
Did that occur to you? That probably how old is the building? At least 100 years. Does things like that occur to you, or the material that it's made out of? Do you question like the impact that you're leaving behind after the sound is off, or?
Look, I mean, it's not my first rodeo, kind of vibrating buildings, but yeah, I think that's always a kind of a surprising element, and for me, that's where the kind of the rubber hits the road, so to speak, insofar as when I have an idea about making a work. That's like step one, but then step 2 and 3 is now it's in this space. So now what does it do, and what is that conversation with that room, and how does that, what does that say, and what is that doing? You know, the duality of these two spaces that the work occupies, you know, very much informs the way I approached it, which is to say it is, you know, it isn't in one space, it's in two spaces, you know, and because of that, it has this inherent dualism. It becomes about, whether you want it or not, it becomes about a relationship. It becomes about two entities, you know, talking to one another, you know, across the space. And so that's how I kind of approach it.
Yeah, now I'm going to go back again, which I was intending to do anyway, and listen to it with that in mind, with you imagining the relationship with the building and the impact. Thank you. So, Jose, I'd like to turn to you next. You know, the work that we see in the Nearness show is called What is Really Happening Here, which is a wonderful name for a work in the show. And the relationship between the amphora on the ground and the canvas in front of us, you know, you're propelled to ask, like, possible crime scene? Who shattered all these, you know? You have questions maybe when you walk in and you see the arrangement. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, about how you use these very distinct media, and there's so much in conversation or, you know, part of one another, and yet so distinct that you know, there seems to be risk involved in doing that as well. So maybe you could talk about that.
Sure. So just to give a little backdrop to this specific work and to some of its roots, the painting itself is a piece that is repeating the question in calligraphic layered form, like a palimpsest of writing, and it's asking the question constantly, what is really happening here in layers? And that question first starts with, what kind of writing is this? Is it Arabic? Is it English? Is it Hebrew, Japanese? It's a universal language. So the viewers can maybe possibly think it's their own language, and maybe what's written is what's going through their mind at the moment. My intention is to ask that question and to blanket a kind of universality already to the work. And that comes from a long history of me being interested in writing and gesture and calligraphy as an art form. And also the impact of cities that I've lived in, traveled to, and how that's informed my form of painting and mark making. When I think about specifically a city like Istanbul or big cities around the world where you do see like this kind of, you see the past and you see the ever evolving present, future, where we're going. There's this question of the shifting, constant shifting landscape of reality. In 2019, I had an exhibition here in Istanbul that we did together, which was magnificent. We had a great experience, and it was titled Isthmus. Isthmus is an important word for Istanbul and for places like Istanbul. If you don't know it, it's a piece of land that connects two larger pieces of land divided by two bodies of water. And it's a kind of bridge. Like Panama is an isthmus, and Istanbul is an isthmus. But I also loved it because IST, Isthmus, IST.FESTIVAL, Istanbul.
Nice.
Right? The airport is IST, and
Yeah.
I found these like really localized connections. And I kept thinking about the texture of the city, the buildup of history, and how we see a lot of ruins of, the different, empires that were here. And you see that in places throughout the world, and how that constant history is impacting us constantly, no matter where we're from. And so a lot of my paintings, besides the paintings that are calligraphic, they involve these wall textures, something that might remind you of like the Berlin Wall. So there's always this kind of like, political tension happening when you look at this painting or wall as a reality.
Yeah.
Where was it? What inspired it? Who lived there?
What's it covering up?
Yeah, what's it covering up, or what's the message in it, right? Like, so that's part of it. Then the ceramics, when we did the show Isthmus, we explored these Anatolian shapes of ceramic form with bright color, inscribing, and I was really inspired by, in particular, like the calligraphy that you see here at the Hagia Sophia and the big mosque, and throughout the city you'll see this beautiful Arabic calligraphy. It's like almost like a song in written form. And so I wanted to do that in this ceramics, and I went to various museums and saw some of the world's oldest Arabic ceramic collections are here in Istanbul. So I went and really connected to some of those ceramics, but also manuscripts that are ancient here. And I learned about the stories of the calligraphers I really connected with. Like calligraphers to prove to each other how good they were, and to prove to their masters of style how good they were. It was a really deep task. They would walk across the whole city barefoot, right? And Istanbul's a really big city, but they would carry their scrolls full of writing, full of calligraphy, just to show up to the meeting with the masters, where they all were waiting for, the young disciple to make the presentation. And, they were all sitting there like, what's he's gonna do, And they're like stroking the beards like this, what's going on? And the young disciple would, throw the scroll onto the floor and say, my name is Muhammad al-Baktoum, and then poof, like a magic trick, all the calligraphy was sprawling scrolls, and then they would all go, oh, and there was like debate, style and form, and all of this was like something that for me was just super fascinating. And I wanted to bring that to the project, the Isthmus project. But here, this is this condensed kind of small piece. This painting is questioning this history. What is it? what's this reality? And then the fractured ceramic, it's no longer colorful. It's not meant to be beautiful. It's more like this excavation that happened, this archaeological, broken pieces of the past, asking again the question. And like maybe, was this intentional? Did this happen by mistake?
Excellent.
Was it found?
Was it tragic? Was it?
Was it old? Is it new?
Yeah.
It's just really open to interpretation, and I like this condensed feeling of that versus like a big exhibition that we had already done.
Yeah,
So,
great.
yeah.
Thank you, Jose.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Lal, and now turning to you. So the work that we see on the top floor of the main building is really quite stunning. I mean, just in scale.
Thank you.
You walk in and it looks like from the bottom of as you're approaching through the stairs, it could be like an altarpiece, but then you get closer and there's something quite dark going on as well. And I know that that social media is a major source for a lot of sort of the ideas that you're looking at. And when I got closer, approached it, I realized that these figures in there are wearing masks.
Yeah.
And we were chatting right before we got up here, and you said, yeah, that's social media again. It's the filter effect, was one way you described it. So if you wouldn't mind talking maybe specifically about the work, what went into it, and why you decided to use and depict those figures the way you did. And there's a lot going on in that work too. It's not just 21st century, characters on that altarpiece, but it does refer. It reaches much further back into time, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit more in detail about that.
Okay, the thing is, like, I'm seeing my production process as a playground. So I like to try different kind of mediums, eras, and I also like travel super often. So it's very inspiring to see different kind of cultural backgrounds. And I'm playing everything. So like in that composition, you can able to see different kind of eras like Victorian, Baroque, also 21st century icons. I'm combining everything, and they form the body or textile or holistic icons even. And out of that, I'm creating my own worlds. So yeah.
Yeah. And the historical references, it's not a clear, linear, straight. How long have you been looking at social media?
Since I know myself, we grown up
Yeah.
with social media, and I mean those masks, for example, directly refers to the 21st century, but those masks belongs to Mexico or Egypt. It's really nice to see that dialogue from the past and the present. So yeah.
And also that that these parallel universes can coexist at the same time. I mean, one thing that I was thinking about was that when you encounter in social media these different identities, whether people are using filters, whether people are only putting their best face forward. I think one of the messages that we get from your work is that identity isn't a concrete, fixed object, and that it can shift. Do you see power in that, or does that sort of make going back to the very basic notion of what is really real? So when you look at social media and you see that reality is being so packaged and provided to maximize. I guess likes or whatever. Is that? Do you feel like that somehow takes away from it, or is that our reality now? Is that what we live with?
My personal perspective, I don't believe in reality. I think we all live in the illusion, so that's why I'm playing with those concepts.
Okay.
In social media, I think we regret that we having a mask, but at the end, I think we all have masks, and now we can able to change whenever we want. It's super easily by filtering or deform our bodies by Photoshop. Everyone regrets, but the end, this is our own reality. But what is the reality there? I don't know. I think everything is illusional in this century. So
Wow.
this is my perspective. Yeah.
That is a very, very powerful idea. Do you think it happened in this century? Is that part of what you're saying? Is it something very particular to this age, or is it something that we've only come to realize in this age?
Yeah, I think it always like that.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
From my opinion.
Okay. One thing that we should all talk about, if we have time, and I think we do have a few minutes, do we? Okay. But I'm myself uncertain about how to approach it. I was thinking about it when Ben was talking about the soundtrack to food, the scoring around food, and how there's the constant presence now of sound. And would you want to tackle the issue of artificial intelligence, AI music?
Well,
Not art. Yeah. So big topic, but no, specifically about sound and how it's probably more and more restaurants, for instance, would rely on Spotify's AI generated sound. I think if that's not already happening, it could very well.
100% happening.
It's already happening, isn't it?
Jose and I we were continuing our debate just before we came up here, but it's yeah. I mean, look, I hate to be the pessimistic voice in this. Honestly, I really do. I am a musician. This is what I've done my whole life. But I think that yeah, I think we're kidding ourselves if we take this position that adhering to the kind of the digital platforms and allowing that to be the conduit through which every oral experience is dictated to us is a form of resistance. It's not. It's just simply not. It's caving. And yeah, I think the raging against the dying of the light is to disconnect from that.
Oh, really?
And to, yeah, and in a very pragmatic way, I think it really is coming back down to the living room. It's gonna come back down to the tiny little club with the 20 people. It's gonna come down to the person learning to play the cello, because when we're all standing in the ruins and AI's decided to erase every hard drive on Earth, where is the fucking music there? Because it's not on Spotify anymore. So I think this kind of return to the physical reality is like that's the thing. And yeah, it's a frightening prospect, but I think acknowledging that that's where we are is the first step.
And publishing it on vinyl is better than the cloud.
Yeah, but where does the vinyl come from? I mean, that's just oil in another form. So it's. I think it really comes down to community is the first thing. And we were talking before about my experience of being in your home country and just seeing the kind of inadvertent kind of resistance that's going there as a result of being technologically kind of neutered by the state.
There's technologically neutered country. We're talking about Cuba, but at the same time, music is so embedded in our culture for so many centuries, and under an oppressed state, it's all that there is left, in a sense, for self-expression, for building community, even for something like exercise and dancing. There's not many forms of recording left or exposing it to the world. So, but there's like the necessity there is different than in a developed place like New York or Europe or here in Istanbul. So it's hard to say that the answer, like what happens in Cuba, is like the universal answer. But it is a great idea that there's more musicians, more communal experiences 100%.
I think
100%.
I would make the argument that Cuba is a vision of our future, not our future being a vision of Cuba. And I
I mean,
think
if Cuba is the vision of our future, then we're all kind of looking at like a kind of Armageddon. The hospitals are non-functional.
I'm just talking on a cultural level, but yeah, I
But
get what you're saying.
Culture is also coming from this other landscape that feeds the culture. So a lot of art comes from the suffering. And a lot of the Cuban energy of music and this kind of resistance comes from this necessity to survive. And that's why I was like thinking like, it's a difficult conversation when we bring up Cuba, because I do encounter a lot of people who say to me, I just got back from Cuba. What a great trip. Fantastic. It was so beautiful. I was in the beach. And it's complicated for us because you go there for 1 week or 2 weeks, great. Living there,
Nightmare.
you can't
Yeah.
even, it's a nightmare. So it's not a solution.
No.
Not that capitalism is, not the US is.
But I do
Definitely.
think that Ben was saying that that's why maybe music and it's so essential there, and
Yeah.
that's what makes it so.
No, 100%. You
there's
hear
a-
the music.
There's a purity to
Yeah,
to
you can
it.
follow it to someone's
Yeah.
house, walk right in, and they'll welcome you.
Yeah.
And you can just have fun and dance with people. It's the most beautiful thing.
And that
Yeah.
is that's so real.
It is.
That
Yeah.
is really real. So we only have a couple of minutes left, and I think we'll do like a very quick lightning round with Lal and Sheree and Jonah about putting forth the big question of the day. And Lal, you kind of answered it, I think, in the last thing. So you can be excused from this lightning round if you want. But the question is, what is really real, and what do you see? If you don't believe in a reality, if everything feels like an illusion, what is really real for you?
Soul, our soul. That's it.
Lovely, lovely. Sheree, what do you say?
Well, I wanted to just like throw in another question, perhaps that might bounce off of what you guys were talking about. But we've been seeing, digital versus real in regards to visual art for a long time.
Yeah.
Like visual art is, is online, but people still go to museums to experience the real. But to answer the question about what is really real, I think the only thing that we can really count on to be real is change.
Wow. Yeah. The only thing that you know is going to happen is that it's going to be different. And Jonah?
I tend to agree that I think it's all an illusion. But what I'll say is that I think that the issue in this question of what is real is we all have our own reality that we experience, but it's the shared reality where the problem is now. And I think that us living in these mediated worlds increasingly is sort of creating it's preventing us from having a real shared reality. And I think that when you're asking what is really real, I think this is really
This
as
feels
real
real.
as we can get. I think the IST Fest is really real, and I think this idea of being in a room, listening to someone play music is really real. Going to a museum and being confronted with the material of art is really real. And yes, it's all an illusion for sure. I think a lot of the problems have to do with us not being able to share reality in the same way that we've been used to.
And all of those examples are in which those are shared experiences.
Yeah.
And it's shared reality. And that returns us to our basic faith that we can witness and feel roughly the same thing in watching the same event or seeing the same art.
If I could share one more analogy
Please.
is the illusion, of course, it lives in our mind. But there's one thing that we always forget about that we're sharing it right now. It's breathing, it's oxygen.
Yeah.
That's
We're
very
alive.
real.
Yeah.
We're alive. Yeah, beautiful. Jose, do you want to say something, Ben? Okay, great.
That's so funny.
And then I'm going to make kind of an awkward segue to something else that's really real and do a little plug for the newspaper that I write for, the Financial Times. I hope you've had a chance to maybe go online and look at it, but this weekend coincides with our launch of something. It's the Istanbul Globetrotter series. So you can have a look at that during your time that you're still in Istanbul. We'd be so pleased if you would go. You can find it at It's ft.com. /Globetrotter/Istanbul, and it's a brand new guide. It came out this weekend, and the editors are here in the audience, Rebecca, Nikki, and the stories have been written by, I contributed one, and by other really brilliant colleagues who know and love Istanbul, so that's something I'd like to leave you all with, so. Thank you all so very much. This was really, really nice for me to get to know your work a little bit over the last few days and to hear from you. It's a real privilege for me, so thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for them?
Hi, thank you. I have a question for Demet and Alfan, actually. Sorry, I'm hijacking this thing. You guys have asked all of us what is really real. I'd love to hear your answers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my answer was this exhibition. Like, I thought about a lot what is really real. And Alfan wrote an amazing theme. And I was like questioning it 100 times. And then I said, the only reality for me is the friendship. And I love where we moved our gallery space. And I just wanted to share my love with everybody and with the artists that are involved in it. That's my reality.
I mean, in terms of us, we humans, I totally agree emotions are real, but I also think there is a reality that's out there. And we as humans are not capable of there's an objective reality that exists, and we are not designed, we're not capable of perceiving it that way because we are emotion driven. Our backgrounds, the way we grew up, our surroundings, the landscape, even the weather affects how we perceive it. And maybe I don't know, in the future, maybe AI, computers are going to be the tool that's going to capture that objective reality, which we are not designed to be able to capture, honestly. But for us, is our emotions. We have our own subjective realities. That's what I think.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.